Australia has a growing drug crisis that begins to form in the individual as early as adolescence. How many Australians do you think reported using illicit substances in 2016? Now, how many adolescents do you think reported drinking alcohol? Pause the video and write down your answers. The answer is 3.1 million said they have used an illicit substance, and almost half of all secondary students aged between 12 and 17 reported drinking alcohol. Did these figures come as a shock to you? So what needs to happen to reduce the number of teenagers experimenting with alcohol early, then moving on to illicit substances and becoming one of the 3.1 million who have used them? The answer is effective drug education in secondary schools. I'm Chelsea Waters, and I've collaborated with Tristan Dubinsky to create this pitch. We are university students at La Trobe who are learning about substance use in Australia. Today we'll be talking about why all secondary schools, including yours, should implement drug education using a whole school approach. Secondary schools cannot prevent all adolescents from using licit or illicit substances. However, they can minimise the proportion using, or at least delay the age of first use. You're probably wondering how bad the drug problem is if schools are being asked to increase the amount of drug education they provide. Well, I can assure you that the increasing drug problem needs some attention, and it all begins in their compulsory educational years. The average individual attends school for 11 to 13 years of their life for 6 hours, 5 days a week. This is ample time to teach students about the right and wrongs and to implement strong morals into them. School teachers, peers, and the curriculum could shape a person's identity and their life choices forever, as they spend a large portion of their developmental years at school. This is why it is extremely important that schools are offering adequate education about substances which can change the course of an individual's life. Secondary schools need to be seen as a place for prepping a young person for the adult world. The morals and knowledge they build during this 11 to 13 years can determine their future. It is proven that a lack of drug use increases employment and further educational opportunities. They need to be shown the possible long-term effects of drug dependency, such as unemployment and poor financial and living situations. We all know that adolescence is a time in an individual's life where they may want to experiment with risk-taking activities such as smoking, drug use, and reckless driving. So why don't we use this curious phase of their development to implement the harms and risks of drug use, which could in the future stop dependencies, overdoses, and poor situations? Adolescence is the perfect time to feed them life-changing information and to tackle current drug issues by offering support systems early before their substance use becomes a problem.
It may be too late to change the mindset of adults who have completed their education, but it is not too late for their offspring or younger generations. Minimising the prevalence of drug use is a collaborative effort that needs to involve parents, teachers, and even the media. For example, what is being taught at home needs to be consistent with the curriculum at school and vice versa. If schools are the first to educate students, then it will make it easier for parents to support. 450,000 children are exposed to a household where at least one adult binge drinks. These adults can become role models for this large number of children. If the negative effects and harms from substances are not being reinforced at home, then where else are these young people supposed to learn these facts in their school, if their school does not provide it? Not all teenagers have positive role models and good morals to learn from in their home life, so it is essential that they are provided with this in their school life. These students deserve a fair chance at avoiding a cycle of drug users and to live a risk-free life. If drug education is not taught at their school, they will not have this chance. Those who attend school regularly have less of a chance of using drugs. This demonstrates the importance of better substance education. The media can portray a positive outlook on cannabis, tobacco, and alcohol use through songs, celebrities, and role models, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter accounts. If drug use has the connotation of being a cool behaviour, then teens may start experimenting to fit into their social group. Adolescents aged 14 to 19 are more likely to have tried cannabis than tobacco, with 25.5% experimenting with the illicit substance and only 16.2% trying the legal drug. This may be for a few reasons, however, one of them is how marijuana is portrayed in the media. Students need to know through drug education that no matter how cannabis is depicted, it is still a harmful and illegal substance. This will decrease the number of teenagers experimenting with the illicit drugs. Another important reason why drug education needs to be improved is because the National Household Survey found that Indigenous people were using cannabis more than non-Indigenous people. Drug education could be a possible factor into closing the gap between these two cultures and enabling Indigenous students to have a fair future. Another reason why drug education is essential in schools is because of the extensive damage drinking alcohol at a young age can cause on the brain and body. There is a major difference between youth who are non-drinkers and those who drink alcohol frequently. Alcohol can have an impact on adolescent brain function by decreasing their memory recall, disturbing their sleep cycle, impairing their learning and social skills, and increasing the chances of developing depression and suicidal thoughts. It has been found that drinking alcohol at a young age can cause damage to the hippocampus and the prefrontal area, which can alter the development of memories and personalities. Alcohol abuse during adolescence not only causes negative short-term outcomes, but can also change the quality of their adult life. Those who binge drink weekly as a teenager are found to have problems attaining goals such as employment, marriage, and are more likely to have drinking problems as an adult. The effects of substance use on young people is extensive. We can clearly see that. With all of these negative outcomes that derive from using illicit and illicit substances being present, adolescents are still choosing to experiment with them. So now we need to break down the factors influencing a young person's decisions. These usually involve peers, their educational understanding, the media, and many others. One that schools can try to change is ensuring they have accurate information about the risks and consequences presented to all students, not just the select few, in order to make their decisions from.
The number one reason why drug education is so important in secondary schools is because alcohol contributes to the three leading causes of death in young people, which are unintentional injuries, homicide, and suicide. It is found that among 16 to 24-year-olds, alcohol-related harm is one of the leading causes of disease and injury. So if effective drug education on the harms and risks could help in saving thousands of young people's lives, why not implement it? One teenager's life is worth applying drug education in all schools, never mind for the sake of so many who were or are unaware of the dangers that come with drug use. If there was effective education about the risks of binge drinking and drug use that endangered their safety, then the amount of unintentional injuries would significantly decrease. Alcohol and drug use not only takes its toll on the users and their families, but also on the Australian community. Alcohol misuse costs the Australian community $15.3 billion each year from crime, violence, and loss of productivity. The evidence is clear. We have a growing drug problem in Australia, which includes those who are not even adults yet. Drugs can cause serious damage to a young person either through continuous use, which can form into a dependency, or through just one accidental incident that can end a life. It is obvious that we cannot just allow this problem to continue, and one way forward is to give teenagers the information they need to know the potential risks of drug use, which will either deter them completely or extend the age they first use it. It is not that big of a change to the curriculum for such a positive result for these young generations. Drug education could extend someone's life considerably, so why not make this small change? So if improved drug education does become a part of your secondary school curriculum, setting goals to test improvement rates is a good idea. Some realistic goals that are likely to be met involve improving the attendance levels, decrease the dropout rate, decrease offences from students at your school, lower the number of overdoses and teenagers abusing drugs, and it would hopefully decrease the number of local drug rings operating. The attendance levels and dropout number would significantly change as students can concentrate on school and are less likely to use drugs as an excuse not to attend. Some students become involved with illicit substances and begin making earnings from distributing drugs in their community and no longer see the point in attaining an education. Educating young people of the dangers of getting involved in drug rings or drugs in general may deter a percentage. Providing adequate drug education would decrease the number of students using. Therefore, there would be less drug-related or influenced offences, and in the long term giving your secondary school a better reputation. An improved reputation is also built when the number of student overdoses lowers, which can be successful by informing students of the harms and risks that are associated with abusing substances.
First of all, what is a whole school approach? A whole school approach focuses on the responsibilities of every member of the school community to ensure all students have the opportunity to maximise their learning experience. This includes all school staff, parents, carers and community members. By providing a whole school approach, this eliminates any prejudiced attitudes toward a certain group of people by treating everybody as equals, even students who may be currently using drugs. This strategy gives an opportunity to convey information regarding counselling and to support students using an unbiased approach. This will allow students to openly seek guidance as the opportunity is available. This may prompt students who are using substances to seek help and develop strategies on harm minimisation. This could also be beneficial to students who have family members who are affected by substance use at home. Support services could provide these students with coping mechanisms and strategies to minimise harm for their affected family member. As the prevention of drug use is a collaborative effort between parents and schools, it would be most effective to contact the parents of the current drug users to allow their involvement. The school also needs to prohibit drugs on the school premises and at school events. This includes the possession, use and distribution of substances from students. Lastly, the school needs to do everything they can to keep students who are using drugs engaged in their education. At this stage, when teenagers are experimenting, they are more likely to leave school and disengage from reality. These approaches provide a safe and positive environment for teenagers to gain a higher understanding of the many types of substances that are available and prompts them to build their own morals based around the facts of substance use. Having a non-judgmental environment present can allow students to seek support for their substance use without feeling judged. These measures need to be taken in order to stop the spread of drug use in your school. A whole school approach should be used in your secondary school as it involves all members of the school, including teachers, principals, all students and relevant members of the community. To ensure a whole school approach, it is implemented that there must be proactive policies that have consistent long-term support from the entire school community. The implementation of this approach can have great potential to the efficiency of drug education throughout schools. Over the years, there has been multiple substance education attempts within Australian schools. Unfortunately, many of these programs are not effective due to the pedagogy that has been utilised. Some programs have incorporated underlying messages of scare tactics to try and deter adolescents from experimenting with drugs. This eventually leads to an individual understanding that the evidence provided to them at this point might not have been entirely true. So there is an image in the individual's mind that they have witnessed family members and members of the community using drugs without succumbing to harm. Therefore, there is a belief planted in their mind that if this hasn't happened to them, this won't happen to me. Another failed tactic is the use of a personal anecdote to help people understand the struggles that the victim experienced. It does sound very appealing having a victim share their experience about the consequences they faced from substance abuse, but the unfortunate reality is that this could glorify their actions and become a role model to the students, which in fact is counterintuitive and subliminally makes these behaviours more desirable to students. Therefore, the implementation of a whole school approach will increase the effectiveness of drug education throughout the curriculum. The approach allows students to remain anonymous and does not target those who may be currently using licit or illicit substances. An effective method is to allow workers from outside support services to provide knowledge of the programs that are available to students if they require it. It is more effective if a member of staff presented the information, as it has been proven that inviting a guest speaker significantly reduces the effectiveness of the program. This is because students may feel that they cannot talk to the guest speaker, as it requires presenting themselves in front of their peers. Classroom teachers are the best source of delivery, as they can identify if a student has been using drugs and can notice body language showing discomfort whilst discussing drug-related issues. A teacher is available at any time, and students generally feel comfortable asking for their assistance. A whole school approach eliminates any imperfections with the use of multiple teaching pedagogies. By using only one program throughout, it gives students a fair opportunity to gain knowledge and build skills.
Certain principles must be followed to ensure a successful drug education program in your school. These principles include comprehensive and evidence-based practices, a positive school climate and relationships, targeted to needs and context, and finally, an effective pedagogy. These principles give students the opportunity to build life skills such as resilience. A skill like this could help teenagers fight hardship in their lives, which may have resulted in substance use if the skill was not learned. Resilience helps them to be able to push through the tough times and recover to continue a substance-free lifestyle. Building a positive relationship between teachers and students can increase their trust levels, allowing teachers to become an effective outlet for discussing issues in their lives. Without this bond, students may turn to their peers for answers rather than from an adult with sensible responses. Another aspect to remember is that the information provided to students must be age and culturally appropriate. It must not define minority groups and single out certain races, as this can be seen as offensive to students who identify as that race. The content of the drug program must address the needs of the students. Some students may be already using drugs and need to be educated about harm minimization rather than the effects of withdrawal, which they may have already experienced. If the content is not relevant to the student's current situation, then they will become disengaged and the approach will not be effective. The best method is to provide factual evidence but not overwhelm students with scare tactics to try and push a fear of drugs. The overall aim is to allow students to build their own beliefs using the evidence that has been provided to them. It has been proven that interactive activities engage students in their learning and provides a better recall of the content learned. Some examples of interactive activities that could be used in drug education is to ask questions to test understanding along the way, enforce group activities, and allow role play. Utilising the creation of scenarios and role play gives students an insight into strategies that they may use in the future to be able to say no to those who are offering the substances. Problem-solving activities are very effective as well. For example, creating an activity that utilises a weekly budget but also having to fit the costs of alcohol and other drugs into that schedule. This helps students to understand the affordability of licit and illicit substances and can help to deter them from that unhealthy lifestyle in the future. This method allows students to place themselves in a real-world scenario, which can often help them to realise that drug use is not a positive behaviour. Including interactive activities for students allows them to apply and consolidate their knowledge and ask peers for questions.
There are certain policies that should be included in your school's drug and alcohol education. One of them is to prohibit the use of alcohol and drugs on the premises and to set rules for dealing with students who have broken this policy. The same policy applies for teachers. If they consume substances on the school grounds, then the issue is to be treated seriously and dealt with appropriately. There needs to be a policy for dealing with drug-related incidents. The school needs to involve parents and ensure the students' well-being is the #1 priority. It is also important that a guideline is created that has steps responding to incidents. Confidentiality is a must when dealing with students who are using or wanting to use drugs. Other teachers or principals can only be included with the consent of the student. These policies should be implemented to ensure the safety of both students and teachers and to create an effective drug program. Schools are beginning to recognise the need for comprehensive drug approaches in young people. It has now been recognised that there are multiple factors that influence substance use. These factors involve the individual, their relationships to peers, family, school, and the community. all of which are intertwined and relate to a young person's health outcomes. Teachers need to be educated on the issue, to be approachable by students, to ask for help or to ask questions. Building rapport is crucial for this process to happen. Teachers must promote the use of a safe and positive environment for the students. Do not just merely list the dangers, but also discuss harm minimisation. This implies that the teachers do not support drug use. However, it is prevalent in teenagers, so safe drug use needs to be covered. There should be an increase in the number of counselling services that are offered to all students using or not using drugs. The type of drug education will vary depending on age. It may be more appropriate for younger students to learn about the effects and harms from drugs, and in the later years to build skills to be able to say no to drugs. Personal anecdotes should be avoided as they can be misread and potentially increase the risk of experimenting with drugs. Providing teenagers with factual evidence will allow them to create their own stance on drug use.
It is clear that implementing improved drug education is crucial for current and future generations to have a brighter future. If you do decide that better education is essential for your school, then consider using a whole school approach, as it is proven to be the most effective method. It is a different approach to what has been used in the past, but promises better outcomes. Hopefully, after hearing this presentation, you understand the importance of deterring students away from a harsh life of substance abuse. No parent wants to see their child die from drug abuse. This is a small change to save hundreds of students at your school.